Tonight I want to tell you a secret I wish someone had whispered to me years ago. There is a door in you that will not open to hands that are merely polite. It opens to the pulse of your most authentic life, to the sound of your breath when you are not performing for anyone, to the tremor of your courage when you decide that the rest of your days will not be spent waiting in the lobby of someone else's attention. If those words ache a little, it is because your soul recognizes home when it hears it. I've met so many women at the edge of that door. Some arrived with perfect lipstick and measured smiles, some with eyes swollen from a night of remembering what they should have forgotten, some with hands steady as surgeons and hearts trembling like violin strings. Their stories were not the same, but their hunger was to be wanted without begging, to be seen without shouting, to be chosen not for usefulness or decoration, but for the unrepeatable resonance of their lives. I think of you when I think of them, of how the world taught you to apologize for your appetite, to be agreeable, to be on time for every emotion he failed to feel. And yet the part of you that refuses to die, the part that will not barter its crown for crumbs, keeps tugging your sleeve at the grocery store, in traffic, while you fold laundry, whispering, "There is more." You know the liturgy of disappointment, the man who texts when loneliness grazes him like weather, the one who warms his hands at your kindness but shivers at the thought of commitment, the one who calls you amazing like a prayer and treats you like a convenience. So many have become specialists in emotional escape, agile gymnasts who can vault over intimacy while convincing you the air is enough. And yet I have watched something else too. I've watched ordinary saints women with stretch marks like longitude, with inboxes full of school reminders and the dry wisdom of divorces finalized on rainy Tuesdays, become the center of gravity in a room without raising their voice. Not because they learned tricks, but because they remembered their weather. They remembered how to be a season. I will not tell you to smile more or less, to cook a certain meal, to learn the language of disappearing. The advice that shames you into obedience is just another version of losing yourself. And losing yourself is a shortcut to being forgotten. What I know is older than fashion and kinder than the manuals that call you a project. Desire, real desire, the kind that does not rot in secrecy, wakes in the presence of a woman who lives in color, not the color of the dress or the shade of the lipstick, though those can be beautiful. I'm talking about the color of aliveness, the hue of a life with chapters that do not repeat, the temperature of a presence that refuses to flatten into predictability. Men are simpler and more mysterious than we pretend. There is a small drum inside their chest that beats faster when mystery walks by, not the kind that confuses and wounds, but the mystery of a life that resists being shrink-wrapped and shelved. When everything about you is known in advance, your replies instantaneous, your schedule scented with accommodation, your essence lit like a store window at midnight, curiosity starves. But when your days possess their own weather, when your silences are chosen and your laughter is not rented, when your boundaries are not doors slammed but gardens tended, something ancient in him looks up like a hunter smelling rain. Let me tell you about a woman who arrived in my office wearing fatigue like perfume. She was brilliant, an architect, a mother, a friend others leaned on, and she had been in a relationship where tenderness was rationed and her attention taken for granted like tap water. She did not want to play games, she wanted to breathe. All she did was this. She put her life back at the center of her life. She enrolled in a dance class she had postponed for a decade. She said yes to friends without clearing it, with a hope that never called. Some days she answered his messages with warmth and speed. Some days she answered after the movie ended. Some days she didn't answer until morning, because mornings are beautiful, and she had forgotten. She brought a bottle of wine to his doorstep with a smile that belonged to no one else. She canceled plans because the version of herself who loved jazz and windows at night suddenly needed to go hear a trumpet. Within a week, the man who had treated her presence like a chair discovered what happens when a chair grows wildflowers. He called more. He asked real questions. He offered to cook. He wondered if he had missed a prophecy. He hadn't. He had missed a woman waking up. The most important transformation was not in him, but in her. She walked differently. The mirror forgave her. She could feel her own temperature again. It looked like unpredictability. but what it really was authenticity returning to her bones. I am inviting you to consider that your life, your real life, the one with night walks, ridiculous playlists, soups that taste like memory, books that take too long, friends who make you laugh in grocery aisles, is not an obstacle to love, but the orchard where love remembers how to ripen. It is not about withholding warmth or manufacturing difficulty. It is about remembering that you are a country with cliffs and markets and holy days, not a hallway with the lights always on. The door in you will not open to hands that arrive only to check, only to take. It opens to a gaze that recognizes the map on your skin and says yes to the journey. We are just beginning. If you trust me, we will walk together through the subtle art of being alive in a way that invites devotion without demanding it, that calls forth pursuit without cruelty, that blesses you first so you can bless without emptying. The evening is young, and there are stars a woman can wear without jewelry. Come, there are languages your soul still remembers. There's a moment in the middle of an ordinary day, a kettle sighing, a bus braking, the small weather of your window that you realize the ache in you is not for him, not really. It is for the part of you that once felt unavoidable to yourself. The girl who could laugh in line at the pharmacy because she just remembered a joke from the 8th grade. The woman who could stop in the rain and surrender the umbrella for the scandal of a wet dress. That self did not negotiate with her own light. She did not write essays in her head explaining why she deserved tenderness. She burned when she burned. She rested when she needed to rest. She trusted the architecture of her own seasons. I remember a woman who came to me with a resume that sounded like a hymn. She had degrees that gleamed and a kitchen so immaculate it felt like snow. "I am always pleasant," she said with a tired smile, as if it were a necklace she could not unclasp. "And he is always bored." I wanted to tell her gently a museum is beautiful, but you cannot live in it. The secret she was missing was not more polish. It was the texture of an irreplaceable feeling. Not the kind that struts, not the kind that begs, but the rare scent a person leaves in the air when they have become a home for a specific emotion. It turns out each of us carries a singular light. Some are the kind of laughter that turns a corner into a holiday. Some carry the patience of deep rivers, how sitting beside them arranges your chaos. Some are lighthouses for courage. The longer you're with them, the braver your hands become. Some are perspective, the trick of horizon, the way a problem shrinks when they tilt it in their palm. Some are sanctuary, a quiet so holy it makes your future kneel. When this light is discovered and tended and offered in its right dose, it leaves a fingerprint on memory. You become the only place on earth where that feeling sounds exactly like that. The woman with the immaculate kitchen did not know her light had been buried beneath efficiencies, smoothed over by helpfulness. She was a virtuoso of anticipation. She could pre-solve a need before it had the courage to confess itself, but she had forgotten the part of her that could lift a room with one question. So we placed a chair by the window and asked the afternoon to talk. We brewed tea that tasted like forests. We let silence make a map. What came forward was not a performance, but a faculty when she listened. The sky inside a person became navigable. She did not fix, she clarified. She did not soothe away responsibility. She showed where the shore was hiding. The next time he came home wearing the dust of a day that had gone wrong, she did not set a plate between them as a peace treaty. She invited him to breathe, then asked the one question that opens locked doors. What would this look like if it were easy? He blinked, as if someone had cleaned a window he had been staring through for years. They sat with the answer until it felt possible. He touched her wrist without noticing, the way a thirsty man grazes a well with his fingers. Weeks later, it was he who reached for the chair by the window, not out of habit, not because dinner was warm, but because the weather beside her rearranged him into something whole. She had not found a trick. She had found herself. I think we make a quiet mistake when we try to be everything. We become a hotel convenient, available, interchangeable, but if you are a garden, a particular garden, with rosemary that remembers the sea and a stubborn peony that refuses to open before June, then the ones who need what grows there will arrive differently. They will not rush through you on their way to a generic comfort. They will come to sit, to breathe, to recognize, and you will give not as a faucet, but as a spring, which is to say, in season, which is to say, from the pressure of inner abundance. You are allowed to be the woman whose presence rearranges a man's breath into something steady. You are allowed to be the woman whose mischievous wit loosens his shoulders until the day falls off like an old coat. You are allowed to be the storm that sends him searching for his truest shelter. The point is not to be all of these. The point is to be the one that is yours, the one your life keeps trying to tell you about when no one is asking you for anything. And yes, scarcity sweetens the lesson. If you pour your medicine into every empty cup, it stops being medicine and becomes tap water. There is a holiness to timing. A gift given when needed becomes sacrament. A gift given to prove your worth becomes debt. I wish we were taught earlier to distinguish between generosity and leakage, between devotion and self-erasure. The world feels different when you learn to say, I am here, and sometimes, I am over there, tending the fire that keeps me warm enough to heat this room when I return. What emerges is a strange paradox, and it is beautiful. You become softer and stronger at once. Your smile deepens because it has roots. Your boundaries relax because they are real. He will notice, he will feel that unmistakable pull, not toward a woman who auditioned for his affection, but toward a life that hums at a frequency he craves. You did not manufacture this music. You tuned the instrument you already are. This is the way a soul becomes unforgettable, not by shouting, not by starving, but by glowing at the wattage it was always meant to hold. The ones who are meant to read by your light will draw their chairs closer. The ones who prefer neon will move along. Bless them. You are not a city of constant signage, you are a constellation, and those who know the night will find you. There is another kind of silence that women learn to survive in, a silence disguised as safety. It's the pause after a text that never comes, the hush at dinner when your words fall into the soup instead of his eyes. It's that quiet performance where you smile because you're afraid that if you don't, something will slip away. You sit in that stillness, convincing yourself that love is just patience in disguise. But what if patience has turned into self-abandonment? What if the silence you keep is not peace, but a cage you've painted to look like calm? I've seen this silence eat through bright spirits like salt through skin. The women who carry it stop moving, stop blooming, stop taking up space in their own stories. They wait, as if love is a delivery that must be signed for. But love does not need your waiting, it needs your presence. And your presence cannot exist where you are only a mirror to someone else's reflection. There's a kind of devotion that is really disappearance, a kind of giving that is really a slow erasure of everything wild and beautiful about you. That's why the third art, the one most misunderstood and yet the most powerful, is withdrawal. Not the cold withdrawal of punishment or the childish silence of games, but the sacred withdrawal that comes from remembering I am a whole world, not a waiting room. You see, men, those who are still learning the language of tenderness, often chase what feels spacious. When you fill every gap, when your affection arrives before it's invited, when your life curls around his like ivy that cannot breathe without a wall, something ancient in him retreats, not because he doesn't want love, but because the chase becomes a cage. Desire needs room to echo. I tell my clients, be a horizon, not a hallway. The horizon invites, promises, never confines. When you create space in a relationship, not absence, but breathing room, you invite return. You allow the other to rediscover choice. And choice, not habit, is what keeps love alive. When a man walks through that door again, not because he was pulled, but because he chose to come back, the soil between you shifts. You both stand freer. You both stand truer. There was a woman, Clara, who had spent 12 years orbiting her partner's moods like a moon around a fading planet. He was kind, sometimes, distant mostly. When she smiled too wide, he said she was too much. When she fell silent, he asked why she'd changed. Clara learned to live in careful doses, half laughter, half love, never too full, never too bright. One day she said, I don't even remember the sound of my own timing. That's what loss can sound like, the absence of your own rhythm. We started small. She stopped answering immediately, not as a strategy, but as a side effect of breathing again. She filled her evenings with music that didn't need company, painted her kitchen walls a bold color no one had approved. When he called and she was out, she didn't apologize. I was at the lake, she said, and that was all. Within weeks, the shift began. His voice, once casual, grew tender again. He lingered, asked about her days, his tone softer, as if afraid the wind might take her if he exhaled too hard. But she was not doing this for him anymore. She was remembering how her own presence tasted. Strategic withdrawal works only when the life you return to is real. If the space you create is empty, it turns to punishment. But when that space blooms with friends, with projects, with mornings that belong to you, it becomes magnetic. Men, like all souls, are drawn to warmth that doesn't demand. It's the paradox of flame. The more freely it burns, the more it attracts. Clara learned that the cure for being taken for granted is not confrontation, it is resurrection. When you come back to life, the world adjusts its gaze. And you must understand this, because it's everything. When you stop chasing, you stop losing. When you stop trying to fill every silence, the right voice finds you. When you no longer audition for love, love can finally recognize you. There is nothing cold in that truth. It's the kindest heat you will ever know, the warmth of belonging first to yourself. A woman who has mastered withdrawal does not retreat out of fear. She simply knows her worth cannot live in captivity. She understands that the sweetest pursuit is one that happens in both directions. She gives, yes, but from abundance, not lack. And when she steps back, she doesn't vanish, she shimmers. The man who has eyes to see her feels it like gravity, this subtle pull between freedom and longing. That is the dance, not games, balance. You might be wondering, how will I know when to lean in and when to pull back? The answer isn't written in any rule. It's written in your body. You will feel it when you are giving. From depletion, your chest tightens, your laughter thins, your eyes glaze. You will feel it when you are giving from fullness. Your breath steadies, your energy hums, your words carry ease. Follow that compass. It is older than advice, truer than logic. The most magnetic women I have ever met all share this one quality: they are busy living. They are not always reachable, not because they play hard to get, but because their lives are already rich. When they say yes, it means something. When they look at you, you feel chosen, not trapped. Their love is not a refuge from emptiness. It's an addition to abundance. They remind you that connection is not ownership, that distance can be an invitation, that longing can be holy when both hearts are awake. Let your absence mean something. Let your silence be eloquent. Let your life speak so loudly that love has to raise its voice to meet it. There comes a night in every woman's life when she realizes she's been whispering to doors that were never meant to open. It happens quietly, perhaps, when she catches her reflection in a dark window and sees not a face but a question. Who am I when no one is watching? What is left of me when no one needs me? That night is not a tragedy. It is the beginning of the great return. It is when the house of yourself begins to light up again, one room at a time. The truth is, you were never meant to live on standby. Yet the world, polite and patriarchal, often teaches you to be a waiting room for someone else's evolution, to smile when overlooked, to apologize for being too much, then feel unseen for being too little, to equate softness with surrender and silence with grace. But grace was never meant to be servitude. Grace is presence. It's the quiet strength that says, I will no longer make myself smaller to fit inside what does not love me in my full size. When I work with women who have reached this edge, I see something miraculous happen. They begin to remember in fragments the sound of their laughter before it had to be careful, the way music felt in their hips when no one was judging, the smell of their favorite coffee shop they stopped visiting because he didn't like the noise. They start to reclaim the tiny altars where they used to meet themselves. And then, almost suddenly, Their posture changes. They start to walk through the world as if they are choosing every step, instead of apologizing for leaving footprints. It's in this rebirth that the fourth and final secret begins to unfold, though it was never really a secret at all. It is the art of magnetism born from peace. Not the frantic magnetism of needing to be desired, but the serene, undeniable gravity of someone who knows who she is and what her soul sings. It is the energy that makes heads turn without intention, that makes a man pause mid-sentence, wondering why your presence feels like remembering something he never learned. You see, real allure is not in the perfume, the lipstick, or the shape of your silhouette. It's in the authenticity you've reclaimed. The world responds to coherence when your words, actions, and desires finally align. You hum at a frequency that is unmistakable. The right people, the right opportunities, even the right love begin to orbit around you, not because you chase them, but because you've become the calm eye of your own storm. This is what I call luminous dignity. It's quiet, but it rearranges the air when you walk into a room. Men, good men, conscious men are drawn to this kind of peace like birds to thermals. They recognize in it a steadiness they crave. They find rest in your fire, safety in your mystery, and the ones who can't handle it, they fall away without a fight, because your calm makes their chaos too loud. You will no longer have to explain your boundaries or defend your worth. The energy you emit will do the editing for you. But the beauty of this new power is that it's not just about attraction. It's about becoming the woman you would fall in love with yourself. The woman who wakes up with intention, who greets her reflection with kindness, who forgives her younger versions for all the times she mistook pleasing for loving. The woman who no longer waits for permission to feel joy. When you become her, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking love as validation and start offering it as overflow. A client once told me, "I feel like men are seeing me differently now." But I reminded her it wasn't men who changed. It was her frequency. She had stopped approaching relationships as auditions and started living like an open field. That's the secret. When you stop trying to be chosen, you start to attract what is meant for you. You move from the desperation of needing to be wanted to the radiance of simply being. Desire, in its purest form, is drawn to wholeness. Think of the ocean. It never apologizes for its tide. It comes and goes with rhythm, not reason. And every time it retreats, it leaves behind something new. Shells, stones, salt. It doesn't ask the shore to love it, it simply is. And everything living learns to move with its heartbeat. Be the ocean. Come and go with your truth. Let your ebb be as beautiful as your flow. And when you sit across from someone, anyone, whether a lover, a friend, a stranger, let them feel that you are not there to complete them or to be completed. You are there to witness, to connect, to exchange light. That's the quiet revolution of womanhood, to love deeply without dissolving, to give without depletion, to belong nowhere and everywhere at once. You don't need to chase a man to make him stay. You need only to anchor so deeply into yourself that his leaving or arriving no longer decides the weather inside you. Love, real love, is not possession, it's resonance. It's two melodies finding harmony without drowning each other out. So tonight, if you feel the pull of loneliness or the sting of rejection, remember this: you are not waiting to be found. You are unfolding. The universe bends quietly toward those who remember their worth. And when the time comes, because it will, the man, the friend, the life that meets you there will not be confused by your depth. He will be fluent in it, because you didn't dim your light this time. You simply stood still long enough to let it shine. And maybe that's the real secret after all, that love was never about learning how to be desired, but remembering that you already are the moment you start living like it. If this journey touched something in you, take a moment like this video. Share it with someone who needs to remember her worth, and subscribe to join me for more reflections like this. Leave a comment below telling me which part spoke to your heart most deeply. Thank you for listening, and never forget, your essence is your strongest weapon.